Hey everyone, I'm Casey and this is a very long overdue update video. I haven't made a video on this channel in 9 months or so, and the main reason is simply because I had to sell a lot of my stock at the very beginning of the year so my wife and I could afford to buy a house and pay for the down payment. So I'm going to kind of give an update on the little bit of stock that I do own. I sold a lot of it. I mean, I still have a little under 30,000 invested in the market right now, which is definitely nothing to sneeze at, but it is primarily stocks that I was down somewhat significantly on that I truly believe in long term. So I figured I might as well hold them and see what can happen. I may also have to sell those as my wife and I are doing a really large remodel. We may end up doing a cash out refi. We can decide that later on, and I'll give an update later on the channel if I end up selling any of those stocks as well. But I'll go through some of the ones that I did sell, the ones that I do still own, my current take on the market, and those holdings of mine that I still have, and just kind of go through all of them. So the main stocks I wanted to cover that I sold were primarily the ones that I made videos about on this channel, which were the large majority of the ones. So the first one I wanted to mention was when I sold AT&T. I sold it at $29 and around 70 cents in March of this year. I think, and you all, if you're curious, you can go back and watch the AT&T video to see what price I bought in at, but I think it was the low 30s, maybe like $31 or so. And I had a large amount, so I think I might have lost like maybe $400 or $500, but in total I ended up breaking even because what I would do for a long period of time would sell monthly calls on those covered calls to basically hedge my downside. And also most importantly, I actually think I ended up a little bit profitable, if not break even, from the dividends. That was the main reason why I bought that stock, was because I knew inflation was going to start running rampant. Sure enough, it did, and it was just a dividend play for me. The stock thankfully has not done too well since I sold it, so it's, I think, around like $22 or $23 right now, so I'm definitely glad I sold that one when I did. A lot of these stocks I'm going to be going through I sold in March, because that was about a month and a half or so before my wife and I bought the house. So the next one that I made a video on, and one of my other largest positions, was Activision, ATVI. I sold 76 of my shares, so the large majority of them, at $84.90 in December of 2020. And then I sold the remaining 30 I had at $90.71 in March. And that was a pretty good profit for me. I think in the Activision video, I'm sure I mentioned what the buy-in price, but it was somewhere in the 80s. And so I think when I sold the majority of them, I hadn't made like a lot of money. And I didn't make anything crazy when I sold the remaining 30, but it was a little something. And I believe now the price of Activision, I forget if it was a scandal or just really bad earnings or a combination of both, but now they're at $58. So really glad I sold it when I did. I still do think it's a great company, really long term. All of these stocks that I'm going to go over, if I were to reinvest, I still think, especially now at these levels with a lot of them and the overall market pulling back in certain segments, it's pretty attractive. Activision in particular, its PE ratio is pretty low, but nonetheless, glad I sold it when I did. Next one was Tencent. I sold that at $82.51 in March. That was a good profit. Again, in the Tencent video, I probably mention it. I feel like I bought it in the high 60s or maybe the 70s. I forget. I didn't have a crazy amount. It was just like a couple $1,000s. So if I got a profit, it was probably just a few $100s. I'm sure you can go back and look at that video and do the math. The other one was Callaway, ELY. I sold that at $22 through an option assignment in December of 2020. That was a pretty good profit. I think only like $500 or $600, because again, it was only like 200 shares of them. So just like $3,000 or $4,000, I think, by the time it went through. But that percentage-wise, if I'm remembering correctly, that was a really large gain. And I think Callaway is still doing okay. Let me pull it up. Oh, wow. It's a lot higher. It's at $27.59. That is one that I think is a really, really cool and potential company to hold for a long time. Yeah, that would have been awesome if I kept it. It hit the 30s as well. One of the next ones that I sold that I was down on, and I had been up on at some points and it was just not moving, was gold, GLD, the ETF that tracks it. I sold it at $161 in April. That was a play similar to AT&T that I envisioned kind of as an inflation hedge. Totally didn't turn out to be so. I wish instead I put it in the digital gold of Bitcoin, or maybe even Ethereum. Ethereum would have been even better. But yeah, the next one was Tattooed Chef. I sold that at $19.27 in August, which I believe, you can go back and watch my videos, but that was around break even or a little less. I think if I'm remembering correctly, I sold it at a loss, but I had made like $400 or $500 over the year or so of holding it, or 8-9 months, because I sold a lot of covered calls. When it would get really, really hyped up, I would sell covered calls at a really good premium. And so that kind of hedged my losses on that one. So if I had to guess, I would say about break even. The last one worth mentioning that was probably one of the more profitable ones in terms of dollar value that I talked about on this channel, and especially percentage gain, was American Airlines. I sold my 500 shares of American Airlines at $24 in April, and that ended up being around $5,000 in profit, even though I bought it at $12.55. If you go back and watch my original American Airlines video, I was selling covered calls on it for the $15 strike price, and the stock ended up taking off, and I bought those calls back at a loss, which was like, I don't know, like $1,000 or $1,500 loss. Overall, I was still up. But then what I did was I sold more covered calls, 5 of them, again at a $30 strike price, which I got like $1,400 premium back. So I basically like got rid of that loss and pushed my options to a higher strike price and higher out. So that's why it ended up being, I think, around like $5,000 or so, even though the stock price appreciation was like 6,000, was because I hedged my losses and capped my gains a little bit with the covered calls. So going over the stocks that I still have, I don't want this to be, a super long video. It's probably already getting there, but one of my larger holdings still is Astra. I own 821 shares of those. I unfortunately got a lot of them when the stock price was a lot higher. So my average cost is like in the 13s. And so I'm down, I think, like $4,000 or so on those, which obviously is why they weren't in the list of ones that I sold, especially because it's a company that I truly do think has the potential to grow like crazy if they really live up to the potential that I believe they have. That you all can go research videos on them or articles and everything, but they're essentially a satellite company that is revolutionizing how lighter payloads can get into the atmosphere, or sorry, not the atmosphere, but into orbit. So pretty cool company, definitely go check them out. Recently they got their first launch into orbit, and the stock price jumped like crazy, and I was basically about break even. And I didn't sell because I still had some covered calls that I wanted to not close out. And again, it's something that I think could really, really grow long term. So I'm not too worried, even if it goes all the way, down to basically nothing. It's a really good risk reward in my opinion. The next one that I made a video on this channel on and has just been getting absolutely killed is Alibaba. So I own 50 shares of that. The stock price as of recording this is around $121. My purchase price is in the 230s. So I'm down like 5.6K on that. And that one is probably the one that definitely the worst call on this channel, and definitely the worst stock that I've probably ever owned in terms of, and I haven't closed out those losses. Hopefully they end up never materializing, because I truly do think that the US and China tensions will go away. I truly do think that Alibaba, is one of China's kind of darlings, and I don't think they're gonna kill off Alibaba by any means. I truly think that it will get back to where I got it, If it doesn't, at this point, since I've already lost so much, it's only, you know, like 5 grand left in it, 5 or 6 or something like that. So if it goes to 0, it sucks, but there's no reason at all that I should sell at like a 50% loss. So that's one that I'm really glad like I got out of Tencent when I did, like I was talking about. I wish I got out of Alibaba at the same time, because the China and US tensions, mainly less of the tensions with the US and more of just the Chinese regulations, have really been tough on the Chinese stocks overall that are listed on the US stock exchanges. So anyway, that's one that I'm still holding, and you know, I'm hoping to hopefully get back. Another one is the next company, and I talked about this on the channel, and it's the only stock that I'm up on in the ones that I'm remaining holding, is Matterport. So I spoke about Matterport on this channel when it was GHVI, when it was the SPAC. I bought in around $17.75. That's my average cost. And at the time of recording this, it's $22.78. So I'm up about 30%. Recently, it had a crazy spike, got into the 30s, I believe even like $33 or $34. And I was up a crazy amount. But I also sold some cover calls on that. And that's also a company that I think can grow like crazy. I think a lot of this hype and everything due to the metaverse lately has had its stock price, has made its stock price artificially inflate. And so I wasn't surprised at all that once it went up like over 100% in like a month or two, that it was going to come down. But it looks like it's kind of leveling out a little bit. And nonetheless, I think it's a really great company to own long term. That's one of my larger holdings right now. You know, I have about 9K in that. So that's one of the larger ones. Matterport, Baba, and Astra. Those are the 3 largest ones right now. The next one that I own, that I talked about on this channel, and it's the last in the list, is Opendoor. As I mentioned, it was IPOB when I talked about it on this channel, and it turned into Opendoor. I'm down about 25% on that one. I only have like 3 grand in it, so nothing crazy, only down like $1,000. And that was one that also just recently, within the last couple months, I was up on just a handful, like several $100s, maybe like $400 or $500 or so. So nothing crazy, but that I kind of wish I sold. I still truly believe in Opendoor, like really long term, like 5 to 10 years, but I'm not sure what the housing market's gonna look like in the next couple years. I don't know if it's gonna be anywhere near as hot as it has been lately. I personally think it's gonna probably level out or maybe go down, who knows? But nonetheless, I'm definitely gonna hold it for a while. If I get an opportunity to get out of it in the next 4 or 5 months while my wife and I are doing a remodel on our home, I probably will, just to get the cash. But you know, if I wasn't in a position where I may need some cash, I wouldn't be thinking about selling any of these companies. That's why I kept them, even though I was down. Some of them, you know, like I was talking about, cut my losses on, like for instance with gold, and then also with AT&T, and I think a couple of other ones I was talking about. You know, I was either maybe down just a little bit or break even, and even though they probably would have been okay, my still long-term horizon on them felt solid. I wasn't as confident as I was, and you know, when facts change and reality changes, you know, you have to sometimes admit that you could have been wrong. And so that's what I did with some of those. Anyway, I know it was a really long video, but I haven't made a video on this channel in 9 months or so, like I said, and so I thought it was really long overdue, and hopefully give some explanation of why I haven't really been making videos. It's simply because I sold almost all of my stocks, and the ones that I do have, I'm basically down on, so I'm not gonna really do anything other than Matterport, which I'm up on, and I also don't know if I'm gonna be selling that soon, maybe if I need the cash. But most importantly, I'm not in a position where I can really be adding to my portfolio right now, because any of the cash that I am saving from, you know, our jobs is going straight into the remodel. To give a little perspective, I'll throw a photo up on the screen possibly, but my wife and I bought a house that was a single-story house, and we're adding a whole second story, so it's a pretty big, substantial remodel. We also kind of gutted everything, not kind of, we did gut everything on the inside, so it's been pretty expensive. And so I'm, you know, every dollar that we're saving every paycheck is going into that. So I don't really have too much discretionary income to invest. The main thing I have been investing in, and it's coming from my side hustle, my Wine Country Woodworks business, that has been going into crypto. And I may end up making some videos on that on the channel because I've been researching it a ton over the last 4 or 5 months and really getting invested and excited about the space, especially Solana in particular. If any of you want to look into that, the whole crypto market as a whole has dropped like 30 or 40% in the last couple of weeks and months. So I think if you want to start kind of dollar cost averaging in, now is a really good time to kind of put a good chunk in and then dollar cost average. That's basically what I've been doing, just buying like $100 of a couple different currencies, namely Solana and Ethereum a week. And that's just from my side hustle money. But other than that, like I said, everything's kind of been put away into savings so we can spend it on the remodel. But that doesn't mean that I still can't be making videos on this channel on stocks or cryptos or things that I find interesting that I'm not necessarily invested in. So who knows, I'm gonna try to make a lot more videos, a lot more frequently than I did for sure during this break. Right now, it's just really hard to find the time, but I'm gonna try my best. I mean, if I could make a video on this channel once a week, that would be amazing. I'll try at least once every 2 weeks. That's kind of will be my goal. And anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I know this has been a really long video, but like I said, it was long overdue. So comment down below what you guys have been investing in or interested in, what you guys have been up to. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you're new and want to stick around. And thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.